Thank you very much. Good morning. I'm Bob Jensen. I'm the Director of Enterprise Architecture at PMI Mortgage Insurance. We are not the Project Management Institute, in case some of you were wondering what PMI stands for. I'm going to tell you the story of how we've used rule management and process management to achieve business agility, which really is better, faster, and cheaper changes to achieve business results. I'm going to tell you about how IT has collaborated with the business as facilitator and enabler to achieve these results. So let's talk a little bit about PMI. PMI is a leading provider of credit enhancement products and services. We provide mortgage insurance rates and eligibility for customer inquiries and MI origination through our rates and eligibility engines. That's our business context. Our business problem statement, and let me tell you a little bit about how we came to this problem statement, is that as Director of Enterprise Architecture, I am responsible for our business architecture. As part of that business architecture, we modeled, as Dave suggested, our as-is, looked at our pain points around that as-is process, came up with the root causes for those pain points, and identified candidate solutions for those pain points. Some of those pain points were that we needed to increase business adaptability. We needed to introduce and support new rate structures in the organization that required significant modification of our rates engine. We also had new eligibility guidelines, which are our risk assessment around mortgage insurance applications, and we needed to be more adaptable and more flexible, as I'm sure you're aware, and the mortgage industry has undergone a lot of change in the last few years, as has financial services. So our ability to really adapt to those changes, both regulatory and business changes, has been critical to our success. We also had some technology drivers for our legacy systems. Our rates and eligibility engines were originally designed as SQL Server VB components of our origination system. The support for that VB component and for the rates and eligibility technology platform is going to be deprecated by Microsoft. So we had some really key business and technology drivers that led us to look at candidate solutions for replacing those systems. As we look at a legacy application architecture, and I would bet that many of you have a similar application architecture in your industries. We started off with a Visual Basic client-server architecture where we had embedded some of our key policy rule decisions into stored procedures in the database for both rates and eligibility. This gave us essentially a black box around how these policies and rules were implemented that was not very well documented, not very well understood, difficult to support. There wasn't a lot of transparency around it, so that we had some real technology and business drivers around refactoring this to achieve business agility. As we looked at our origination process, the key volatility that we saw in that process was around our rates and eligibility changes. We were looking for where there's a lot of change coming in and where time to market were critical. So essentially in our roadmap, we started off looking for these kinds of elements. In addition to that origination process, we had bolted on or built as another part of the application stack a web UI to expose these services out to customers. We'd integrated that into the legacy application through a messaging infrastructure. So you can see the evolution of technology in our architecture over time. And so what we really wanted to do was refresh this, rethink this, both from a business process, from a policy management, and from a technology architecture. In addition, the way that we introduced change into our environment was really an unstructured kind of request. It was in emails and voicemails. The approval process around these policy changes wasn't well structured, so that led to refactoring, rework, redefinition around the request. That was also a major pain point in how we were able to introduce change into the environment. This is kind of our approach to defining our pain points, how we came up with candidate solutions. Our strategy, or after we'd done that initial analysis as part of our business architecture, was to provide the business with the ability to update and audit rates and eligibility guidelines, empowering the business as a rule author. We wanted to streamline the rates and eligibility development and deployment process and really collapse that whole development cycle. In a traditional software development lifecycle, you have a subject matter expert on the business side who talks to a business analyst, who writes everything down, who then talks to a designer, who then transforms that into code that can actually be tested and deployed. There's a lot of transformations that happen from the initial concept around a policy or a rate change through to implementation. With the solution that we adopted for iLog BRMS as a solution, it really collapses those roles. We were able to design the business object model and the process so that a rule author, a subject matter expert in our credit policy group, is able to use the tool, author it, and get it into production while still keeping our best practices around the software development lifecycle. I'll tell you more about that. Some of our key critical success factors were iterative and incremental change, starting small. We started with an international rates and eligibility project. We didn't have to do any data migration. We didn't have to do any data mining around our legacy apps. And based upon that, it gave us a really good implementation pattern. We learned a lot about the tooling. We had some success around that resulted in our ability to really introduce that in as the solution for revisiting and refactoring our legacy application architecture. Some of the business benefits that we saw out of this is that we were able to reduce the resource training. The time to train a rule author has gone from a year to 2 months. And initially we were doing that. We had rule authors was really, a complex collection of people with the subject matter experts, a business analyst, a designer, developer. That responsibility has really come into the business. The business is able to use Rule Team Server, the iLog technology, to really author the rules and get those in. We'll talk about how we've done the requirements management that enables them to do that. But the combination of getting precise requirements and the correct authoring tool has really given us the business agility and reduced our time to market and given us a 20 to 30% time savings, in addition for the business to take responsibility for that authoring so that they can schedule what they want, when they want it, they know what's coming in, and it's been a real gain for them in terms of transparency. We've also, with the refactoring of the structure of the policies, enabled extensibility, and that was key in terms of their ability to adapt to change, not just taking what we had and transforming it into the new engine, but actually taking the analysis effort to rethink the structure of our policies so that we can not only do what we needed to do, but we can think ahead and think about what they might be able to do and enable and empower the business to author new policies, even if they weren't part of the legacy application. We've also been able to reduce the effort to author rules because since we were able to design, redesign, and refactor and rethink our whole policy authoring environment, we've made it so that it works the way the business wants it to work. It has the rule flows and the decision tables and the conditional logic reflects the way that they think about their business, and it is presented to them in Rule Team Server with a vocabulary that they defined and makes sense to them so that the rule vocabulary and rule authoring, the authoring environment makes sense to them. It's a tool that's designed to work the way they want to work. That's one of the keys for business agility. In addition, because they're able to author in the tools, we're getting improved authoring, reporting, implement impact analysis, a lot of gains from the ability of having the rule authoring and the reporting tools all integrated together. So this is my geek slide. I'm an architect, so I like UML. But essentially, we talked about how our requirements were unstructured. So what we needed to do was to really refine the process of collecting requirements. And this is a key learning for us, is that if we can make a request in a way that makes sense to the rule author,
We can eliminate the lack of clarity in the feedback loop and the need to transform a business policy statement from what a business requester may ask for into a form that's usable for a rule author to put into rule team server. What we're finding now is that a lot of our time is spent discussing the policies and making decisions about what policies want to get implemented. That takes a lot more time than the actual authoring and implementation. So it's interesting how it's transformed from IT as a bottleneck to IT as an enabler and facilitator of business policy changes. Once we've got the request, it's gone through the approval process, and we have auditability and monitoring around that. Rule Team Server allows the business author to both author and report on these eligibility rules. It allows an auditor to take and track the transformation of a request for a policy change through the approval chain and the workflow, make sure that what was approved was actually implemented. All that's enabled for the full life cycle around it. For our implementation, we've chosen WebSphere iLogJ rules and the transparent decision services that Dave recommended to integrate through web services with our legacy MI origination system. We were a little bit concerned about the performance of web services as an implementation pattern. We've had no concerns. It's performed, surprisingly to us and maybe to you, it's performed at the same level as our stored procedure implementation. So we haven't seen any performance degradation around the implementation, and we've been able to achieve business agility and the time to market requirements that we had. One of the key design principles that we implemented as part of our design, and there's still some design that goes into the object model and the implementation and the interfaces, so IT is still an enabler around the integration points with the legacy applications and the policy management, is the business object model. The business object model provides a vocabulary to a rule author. You can verbalize it in a way that makes sense to each rule author, structures the rule authoring so that it makes sense to them, and enables the agility and the transformation that they need to actually author the rules. From a validation perspective, validation is critical. The ability to take a rule and make sure that you haven't had any unintended consequences. That means precision and unambiguity in the requirements, being able to test that, not just functionally test, but regression test that, is really essential to the whole agility and time to market. We have changes that may come in 24 hours before a deployment date. We're able to get, and we have tens of thousands of rules, right, and decision tables and eligibility. We're able to run a full regression around those rules, make sure that there hasn't been unintended consequences within hours. That's the key, one of the critical success factors in our implementation. Taking the entire life cycle from a requirement that may come in from the business, transform that and validate it in a way that's useful for the business author to author in Rule Team Server, and then get that into the implementation, validated, and make sure that we have better, faster, and cheaper. Some of the key learnings. As our business architecture analysis showed us as we looked at our origination process, we were looking for volatility in change and time to market. That's what really led us to focus on the policies and the rule management as our first implementation for business agility. The other part of it that we were looking for is policy ownership and the life cycle for sponsorship. We wanted to have an organization that had responsibility, and that policies have that advantage, is that usually, at least in our organization, policies are owned by one organization, whereas processes are cross-cutting many organizations. Policies have a clear life cycle and a clear ownership stack. We also wanted to, and we were lucky to have a sponsor who wanted to take responsibility for the rule authoring. That was a critical success factor from the analysis. One of the things that we learned as we got into this is that the analysis effort to really mine from our legacy code took a lot longer than we thought it was going to take. So that's a key learning, I'm sure, for many of you as you go forward on your journey for policy management, rule management, is that since these systems are legacy systems, the nature of those commonly are not well documented, not well understood. There's some complexities that come up. Again, getting validation, automated validation is key so that when you have a finding, you can assess it, you can mitigate it, and you can refactor your policies and add to those. Those are some of the key learnings from an analysis perspective. From an architecture perspective, designing coarse-grained web services for reuse and extensibility so that we have these kinds of areas of responsibility where we essentially build out the object model that's complete for that area for rates or eligibility so that we're not constraining the rule author to what we know about their writing policies on. So in our industry, the mortgage loan has many attributes. There's the mortgage loan, there's the borrower, there's the property. If we only looked at what we had for legacy rules, we would have maybe 10% of those attributes would have policies authored on them. What we decided to do was to take that whole object model, put it into the business object model in iLog, verbalize that so that we could empower and enable the business user, the subject matter expert, to decide, oh yeah, I need to write rules around these new attributes that haven't previously had policies authored on them without an interface change, without an object model change. So this is IT as an enabler for business agility. Coarse-grained web services so that we have a request response architecture that will serve not only the current but the projected needs of the subject matter expert. Interface contracts for the complete, so yes, again, what I just talked about. On a technology perspective, we started off with a Java-based business object model. This is an iLog-specific thing, so it may not be applicable, but moving from a Java BOM to an XSD-based BOM was another key learning for us in terms of our ability to maintain and adapt to changes in the industry. From a resource perspective, training the business subject matter expert as a rule author. So we collaborated with them throughout the life cycle. As we built out the object model and verbalized it and built the rule flows, they knew what we were doing. It was intended to do what they wanted. And then what we did is build the documentation and the training program around that specialized object model, the rule flows, so that they had exact documentation specific to what we had decided. The iLog tool is immensely flexible. It can adapt to any of the implementation patterns that you may need. Coarse-grained services may not be the right pattern for you, but building training materials that are specialized for the context and the design decisions that you made is critical. We're able to train a rule author within a week and get them up to speed on the tool because of the flexibility and the power of Rule Team Server and the documentation that we've built as specialized to our object model and our implementation decisions. On the technology side, we had some new roles that we needed for a rule designer architect for the business object model. This is a very iLog specific kind of thing, but it's so that was something that we needed. We went and found a partner with the specialized skills to help us build that out. That was our initial implementation. We brought that in, so we brought a partner in, got us up to speed, then we've adopted that in-house and got our internal folks up to speed. On the governance side, and this is essential for us, we treat policy changes as we do any software change. We run it through our life cycle. We start with requirements management, is that we want to have unambiguous requirements that have gone through the business approval process. We develop and document our standards for naming conventions and packaging so that it is maintainable and it is sustainable and it is extensible and we can get all those best practices. Automation of quality assurance validation is essential. If you can't get validation that you are getting good results, you're getting expected results, you're going to have issues. Especially, that's been a key success factor for us in enabling the business to ensure that they are getting the expected results, not just for this change, but they haven't had unintended consequences for the tens of thousands of policies that are already in production. So automation of quality assurance is a key governance milestone and a best practice. Again, following the software development lifecycle, using scripted deployments into controlled environments, following software development best practices, iLog is well configured for that, moving an application version that's baseline through the different environments, running your quality assurance, UAT, getting those into production. We follow our normal deployment processes so that our operational folks are well versed in that. We've trained our business users in how to use our promotion system so that they manage the promotion requests and are able to interact with the operational folks who are doing the actual deployments. And then we also continue our best practice from a governance perspective of auditing what's being done, making sure not only that we've documented the standards, but that what's being done conforms to those standards and best practices. So just in summary, we were able to accelerate our deployments by reducing our time and effort, collapsing the roles, accelerating, building the right tools that enabled the business to take ownership for this. That was a key part of the agility model. We've got increased transparency because the rules are presented in a way that makes sense to a business subject matter expert. The reporting and query tools in Rule Team Server enable that, whether it's an auditor or an interested person can come in and see what's going on with those rules, what the approval cycle was, what version's been done, what are the changes that have been made to those policies. From an implementation perspective, allocating sufficient analysis time to scope a legacy migration is essential. The migration effort added for us a significant amount of effort as we got in and we started seeing results that didn't conform to what we expected. It's like, oh, there's some additional logic in here, but the extensibility within the tool allowed us to adapt to those without affecting our timeline. Design for reuse and extensibility. That's a key factor. Is for us, coarse grain services were the right way to do that, so that we have a rate service, we have an eligibility service that is sufficiently mature from an object perspective to support whatever policies and changes need to be made. The enterprise business object model, again, gives us standards and definitions that we can use across business units so that we can have an enterprise subject matter expert who can help not only in one business unit but another. So we start to build a pool of resources who are familiar with the policy authoring, and we can begin to extend that, as you'll see in our roadmap, into other services as we mature. Conforming to software development best practices is essential from an auditability perspective, from a governance perspective, and from an operational perspective, so that those of us in IT are not facing unexpected results in production, and the business has the confidence that the changes that they're making are what they intended to do. Standards and quality assurance, again, those are very, very essential. Formalized change management promotion processes are essential. Conducting audit and design reviews to ensure that you're conforming to those best practices. So this part of our story is really about what we've been doing over the last few years. Some of the key lessons about iterative and incremental development we're taking forward. These are not just applicable in the policy management, they're also applicable in the process management, which is the next kind of thing we're going to talk about. This part of our journey is really about going forward. I am currently leading our implementation of business process management, which is our next phase of our business agility strategy. We started off and have been very successful with rule management and policy management, better, faster, cheaper. What iLog has done for our policy management, we expect that IBM business process management will do for our overall process management. Right now, we're in the midst of that. We're really in the facilitation role and the elicitation, but the tools that we're using are really going to help us achieve the goals for agility, transparency, and productivity. Moving better, faster, and cheaper. Improving business collaboration, since we can model a process interactively with the business in a business process definition. We can model a UI in the tool that will actually become executable code. These are part of our agility strategy, and it's working very, very effectively. We're able to model a business process, show that to the users, give them a user interface that's a coach, let them validate this right, get an executable, although immature version out there, so that the elicitation and the interaction and the facilitation role of IT and the IT business alignment is critical, and the tools are really enabling that. So we get the transparency and we get the agility that we're looking for. This next phase is going to retire the remainder of that MI origination system that we talked about. So we started off with the policies because of volatility and time to market were critical there. Now we're moving into the entire origination system replacement. Our strategy is to accelerate our time to value by incremental delivery, iterative delivery of both our new and replacement as-is function. We're able to do that because we have the process analysis. We're able to look at what parts of that system we can have common swim lanes, common stakeholders, and we can iteratively and incrementally replace that legacy functionality by putting a process lens on that application. Our implementation's in progress. We're scheduled for our first release in 2012. For this implementation, we're continuing and extending our use of Webster iLog for JRules. We're introducing IBM Business Process Management into our stack. We're introducing, one of the things we heard in our as-is process analysis is that our stakeholders were going out to both internal and external content. Our underwriters are looking at the industry best practices of tools for risk management and risk assessment. We're a mortgage insurance company, so property is a key. Property valuation is a key element of their risk assessment. How do they do that? They go use tools like Zillow and Google Maps and Trulia, external content. The way that they were doing that in the as-is that they would copy, paste, bring up multiple windows, browser windows. What IBM Mashup allows us to do is to integrate that external content and our internal content, and also to wire these widgets together so that it becomes a seamless integration into the process, so that when you click on a process task to underwrite a mortgage, you can get a dashboard that will essentially populate all of these widgets that are personalized for each underwriter so that we can improve their productivity and their risk assessment. Some of our critical business value drivers: better, faster, cheaper. That's really what we're looking for. In addition, our agility strategy is we want to build to last, which we've been doing for a long time, but build to change. That's a paradigm shift for us. Looking at, as we did with policies, looking for extensibility, looking for reuse, designing these systems so that they will be flexible and adaptable to change. The other thing from a customer satisfaction is that business process management is really enabling us to get transparency into our processes. Dave talked about business activity monitoring and seeing the metrics and continuous improvement. That's essential for us. Being able to instrument our processes so that we can introspect them and in near real time really look at what's going on from a workload management, from a productivity, getting these essential operational management metrics into the hands of the managers so that they can make operational decisions real time and affect the productivity of their staff. We're using an iterative development approach here to ensure measurable progress and to remain agile to business change requests. So taking a process-centric view, taking a scenario-based view through a process, building that out. Then as that, they learn from that, and it's a key learning for everyone about how this is working. We can adapt to those changes. In addition, we're in the financial services industry, there's a lot of change going on, both from a regulatory and a business environment change. So we know that that's coming. We want to remain agile and flexible to that. So coming back to our sales value drivers, our customers want ease of use. They want transparency, collaboration, communication. When they send a request for us to assess the risk of a mortgage insurance application, they want to know when's it going to get back to them, what's going on, so that they can, instead of calling our underwriters or our underwriting center and go, hey, what's going on, we want to enable them to self-serve, provide transparency. We want to personalize the communication with them for event management around allowing them to subscribe to certain events within that process. If they want to know when an underwriter's been assigned or when an underwriting decision's been made, we want to not only let them subscribe to that, but tell us how they want to receive that communication. Imagine an airline paradigm where your gates change or things like that, or your package is being delivered. That kind of transparency around the status of a request is really the analogy for what we're trying to achieve here. We also, our competitive value, want to be a differentiator, get ahead of the technology curve. We feel that BPM is our way to do that because it will allow us to continuously improve our process, to improve our communication and collaboration with our customers. That we're expecting will give us a competitive value. Our agile systems will enable us to speed to market and to create enduring value. Again, built to change and built to last. From an underwriting and risk value drivers, improved underwriting quality and productivity. If they don't have to worry about clicking on all these different services to go and get all these different data. If they can focus on the value add of their intellectual property and their risk assessment rather than collecting data and communicating with other people, that we assert will improve the productivity, reduce the process cycle time so that people can focus on the intellectual property that they have. Customized messaging and dynamic document checklists. One of the things that we have in our industry is that depending on the type of property that's being submitted, we have different requests, different checklists, different documentation that we need for a condo versus a single-family residence. We want to move that up in the process so that we tell our customers what we're going to expect from them before they submit or in the process of submission, rather than waiting until they submit it, then we go back and there's a communication and collaboration loop. So this productivity is not just internally, it's also for our customers and our customer satisfaction. That's the process transparency, communication, and collaboration tooling that we're going to be delivering. Improving the portfolio management of a customer's book of business. As customers are able to look at how their applications are being processed, what are the reasons that they might get a pending request or a rejected request? What are the patterns and the opportunities for continuous improvement? If they submit documents or applications that are missing certain attributes, that causes delays for everyone. If we can expose that to them and give them some insights into what is causing these delays, that's a communication and collaboration analytical part of process management that the BPM stack is going to enable for us. Saving time and resources, of course, everyone wants that, faster and cheaper, but we also want to do better. Improving the quality of underwriting, fewer errors and pens. If we can make sure that the underwriters have all the documentation that they need, that the tools that they're using to do the underwriting are efficiently available to them, will improve the customer experience, reduce the customer's effort, enhance the ease of use, and of course, delight customers, surpass their expectations. Technology value drivers. So we have a legacy application that's going to be deprecated by the vendor. We need to do something about that. So we're moving from the Visual Basic stack into Java. We have a large number of Java implementations, so we're very comfortable with that stack. This fits right into our infrastructure, which is a good solution for us, which is how we started with iLog. As we looked at our target technology stack, we wanted a Java-based solution that would fit into our application server infrastructure. BPM, collaboration, communication, alignment with our customers' technology and where our customers are going, those are all the technology drivers. Our business case. Customer transparency, dynamic information options, and enhanced productivity. Communication, collaboration, transparency. These are the key enablers of business process management, business activity management. We're going to be able to give both internal users and external users a pipeline view of all their pending transactions so that they have an inventory, a workload of what the tasks are. They know where they're at. They're able to customize that. They're able to customize the communication loop back to them about what's going on. Business activity monitoring will give us the ability to instrument those processes, see where the duration is, see where the costs are, see where the bottlenecks are in real time, so we can do workload adjustment, or we can do process improvement, continuous improvement by using these analytics to drive change and continuous improvement. Communication, personalization, letting our internal users define what they want as far as their mashup, their dashboard, what that looks like, allowing customers to subscribe to the events that are enabled by business process management so that they can say what they want when they want it. These are all new communication channels and new capabilities for us that are enabled by business process management. These are human-centric processes. We have humans in the process because we have unstructured data, documents, content that's coming in that needs to be analyzed and revised. So integration in with our document content management is an essential part of our process management. Again, the underwriter dashboard, so personalization, communication, collaboration, integration, seamlessly integrating a number of different technologies in a way that customers and underwriters, users want to work, and the communication loops back are essential for this project. So my last geek slide here, technology architecture. So we've talked about personalization in the UI. the user interface, these widgets, being able to integrate in this external content, allow each user to personalize which widgets they want. It's a iGoogle or My Yahoo, if you guys are familiar with that. That's what Mashup provides for the content that we provide to them. In addition, we can create wiring between these widgets so that as we have a task for a property, we can populate the widgets with the information that they need, saving time and effort, improving the quality so that the underwriters can focus on what is the real risk of this property rather than, oh, have I got the right map or have I got the right valuation of the property. From a process management, continuous improvement, allowing the life cycle of agility in terms of stakeholder request changes, getting into the process, transparency and instrumentation around the process so that we know what's going on. We're able to raise events and communicate those out to customers. All these are part of both our agility strategy and our continuous improvement strategy around business agility. Business process management will orchestrate between our content management, our SOA business services, so we're building proprietary services to enable that are enabled and orchestrated by process management, and then continuing to reuse and extend our rule management technology. So as we look at our requirements and our models around these processes, where we continue to see complex conditional logic, where time to market and volatility are key, we're putting those services in dialogues. We're able to leverage the best capabilities of both policy management and process management to enable business agility. Our implementation plan, getting time to value, time to market is essential. We're accelerating our time to value by incrementally delivering new functionality concurrently with the as-is functionality so that we can incrementally retire, we can go after the high value drivers, we can provide those to both our customers and our internal stakeholders while we incrementally and iteratively retire our legacy application. We don't have to wait for a big bang to retire it. We can do it iteratively. Business process analysis, business process management is the enabler for us to be able to do this. So that's my story. We're in the process right now. You know, I want to thank the BPMI and IBM for letting me come and tell you what we're doing. And thank you all very much. You gonna give me a third degree?
No, this is great. So thanks for taking us through that. So how are you guys organized as far as localization of skills? Do you guys have a center of excellence that combines like business analysts and IT working together?
Right. So enterprise architecture has really been our center of excellence around business process modeling. We've been very successful in that. And one of the key things that we found, and indeed how we built the business case for this project, was the visualization of the process and the pain points. So as far as an actual center of excellence, I think we'll evolve to that. What we've done right now is that we've taken kind of the enterprise architecture practice and built that into a project to introduce business process management into the enterprise. I do expect that we'll evolve to having a process management center of excellence that will look across the organization and continue the best practices that enterprise architecture has introduced into the organization. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Yeah, sure. Any other questions? Sure.
So in the first part, you had mentioned that one of your critical success factors was getting somebody to own the business rules authorship. Where in the organization did that?
Credit risk management. In fact, yeah, we were fortunate in that our director of credit risk management had worked at another organization and understood rule technology, so she had a very clear vision for where she wanted to go that very much aligned with us. As we look across the other organizations, we've had that success. We're finding that people are very open to that. The learning curve around the tools is not that great. You have subject matter experts who understand the domain, so it's a question of really teaching them the tool And what we do when we have new organizations that we bring on is that we partner with them, is that we'll offer to help and mentor and collaborate on the initial rule authoring so that they get up to speed, they get comfortable, they understand the processes. And so it's really a collaboration that's a success factor. But when they get comfortable with it, they run with it, and it's great. Yeah.
Any other questions for Bob? He's just going to be around once we go through the demo, but any other questions at this time? So I have one, Bob. Just
Sure,
I'm wondering, within the organization, how high up does the awareness of rules and BPM goes? Does your CIO, is he on board, know
Our
about this?
CEO.
Does your
knows.
COO?
Yeah. No, there's very high visibility, especially with the volatility in the mortgage industry. Our ability to adapt and to, our time to market for changes in our eligibility guidelines has been essential during these last few years. So there's awareness throughout the business. It's been a real win for them. They really get that they take responsibility, they own the life cycle, and they're happy and really, satisfied not only with the ability to do it, but how the tool performs and the time to market and all these things. And it's really, that's a pattern that we're going to move throughout the organization. So on the process management side, we're evolving to that, but we have, again, a stakeholder who really is anxious for the transparency and the analytics to be able to better manage his resources and his staffing levels. We're able, because of the way the tool works, we're able to show him some of those early deliverables around and mature that. So even in the absence of some of the services, we're able to give him a vision for how it will work. We've gone to some other customers of IBM BPM. They were really, really helpful in terms of having a vision for how they're using it, and that's really, really been helpful to us. So, as we have with our policy management, we have the same kind of ownership in our process management around really understanding what the tool capabilities are, and they're really anxious to get it into production.
Okay. All right, great.
So, I mean, this is a great story, and when you talk about, the empowering the business user, I guess two related questions. One, on the IT side, did you have to do much selling initially, because there's this, I sometimes hear from the IT side, there's a fear when they start giving up some of that control. Was IT fully on board? And then on the other side, what was going on while the business was excited? Was there also some fear on their side about taking over some of this ownership?
Sure, change is hard, right? But we were able to, since our collaboration started from the very beginning. So on the rules side, I have a much larger experience with that, working through those issues. But we had a shared vision and good communication and collaboration, good sponsorship. So we were able to work through some of those issues, and it's been a relatively easy implementation, and the tool has performed beyond our expectations, really. On the process management side, we've been looking at BPM for a long time. We think right now it's mature enough for us to really introduce it into the enterprise. We've had it running now for about 4 months, and the tool has performed it's exceeded our expectations. It's really living up to what we had hoped would happen as far as our ability to model the processes, model the user interfaces, get those up and running. And the business is really impressed with our speed, our ability to do that. And it's improved our communication and collaboration, because in our traditional software development lifecycle, we'll build a Visio around a UI, and then we'll show that to them, and then we'll transform that into a design spec, and there may be weeks or months before they actually see working code. We're able to give them working code within days. So that's huge, and expose that to them and provision them with accounts so that, we guide them through what's working and what's not, but we give them the ability to interact with the solution and validate the requirements, which is key to business agility. The requirements elicitation is huge, because we used to spend a lot of time on, capturing requirements, validating them. Now we're able to capture them, model them, build them in a way that the business can validate that it does what it wants. We can adapt to those changes. Then we baseline, we go and build it, and then we go into our next iteration. So it's really the technology is ready to do this, and it's working to get this agility and the communication, collaboration, and begin to, as we did with policies, collapse these transformations from static requirement specifications into working code. We're able to do what we've done with policies. We're able to do that in the process management space with the visualization of the process and the decisions and the instrumentation, and then with the user interface and the coaches, we're able to actually give them working versions of that so they can review it, they can see it, they can touch it and feel it and give us feedback, and we can adapt to that. So it's a huge win for us. And so that, since we're able to do that and we're proving it out,